Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring some ideas about intelligence. Pretty thought-provoking stuff, maybe even a little controversial, you know? A listener sent in this YouTube video. It's called Skip This Video and You'll Never Forgive Yourself, No Beebs. And it's from this channel, Library of Thoth.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotta say, it gets a little dramatic, but the questions it brings up are definitely worth a deep dive, right? Like, does society actually try to suppress intelligence?
Interesting.
Is the world, like, rigged against the people who think a bit differently?
Right.
And what does it even mean to, like, wake up in this context?
Yeah, the idea of waking up is, like, really at the core of what this video is trying to say. It's like there's this whole hidden reality most people just don't see. And the video is saying that if you're more intelligent, you're more likely to see through that illusion.
Oh, okay. So the video starts off pretty strong. Right off the bat, it's claiming that the world is not what we think it is. It says everything's designed to keep us, you know, kind of compliant and unthinking, almost like sheep.
Wow.
It even talks about how you might feel like something's off, even if you're doing all the right things, you know, following all the rules society sets.
Oh, interesting.
Have you ever felt that way? Like doing everything you're supposed to do, but still feeling like something's...
You know, that feeling, that dissonance, it's something a lot of people experience. It often comes up when what we see in our own lives clashes with the stories we're told about the world, you know.
Like what?
For example, we're always told that if you work hard, you'll be successful, right?
Yeah.
But then we see people who, they game the system, they inherit wealth, things like that.
Right.
And that can really create a sense of cognitive dissonance.
That makes a lot of sense. So the video is suggesting there are these systems of control that are operating in like really subtle ways. It doesn't really spell out exactly what those systems are, but it definitely implies we're being manipulated somehow.
I see.
Makes you think, huh?
Absolutely. It encourages us to think critically, to look at the evidence. I mean, we know there are systems that influence our thoughts, our behavior. Things like advertising, social media algorithms, political messaging.
Oh, yeah.
The question is, are these systems like intentionally designed to hold back our intelligence, or are they just like byproducts of a complex society, you know?
It's really interesting to think about. It makes me think about times when I've felt pressure to kind of fit in, you know, maybe holding back my true thoughts, especially at work or in social situations.
It's only natural to adapt to our environment. And sometimes that means, suppressing parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
But the key is to be aware of those pressures and to make conscious choices about how we respond. You know.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got these potential systems of control out there, right? And then the video takes aim at the education system, saying that schools are way more focused on obedience and standardized tests than actually encouraging intellectual curiosity. I remember feeling like school was all about memorizing fact, not actually understanding the concepts. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the video definitely raises some valid concerns about the limitations of standardized education. You know, it often puts so much emphasis on rote memorization, on conformity. And maybe that means it's neglecting other things like critical thinking or creativity or just a lust of learning for its own sake.
Right, yeah.
Think about how much weight is given to standardized tests.
Oh, yeah.
They often just measure this very narrow set of skills, and they may not really capture the full picture of a student's intelligence or their potential.
Yeah, that reminds me of this teacher I had back in school. She was amazing. She always encouraged us to think outside the box, you know. She would always say, don't just tell me the answer, tell me why. And it was like such a breath of fresh air compared to the usual focus on just getting the right answer no matter what.
Yeah, that's a fantastic example of how just one teacher can make such a huge difference. It really highlights the importance of educators who foster that intellectual curiosity and really help nurture a student's their unique talents.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got these potential systems of control and maybe an education system that's not really setting everyone up for deep thinking.
Right.
But the video doesn't stop there. It then dives into this idea that we're just drowning in distractions. Things like reality TV and social media, all those viral trends. You know what I mean?
It makes a good point. We're constantly being bombarded with information, with entertainment. And it can be overwhelming. What the video seems to be saying is that this constant stream of distractions, it keeps our minds busy, you know, and that keeps us from focusing on the deeper stuff, the more critical issues.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if we're losing our ability to even engage with complex ideas.
Yeah. It's like we're always being fed all this stuff designed to keep us hooked, but maybe not to make us think that deeply, you know? Right.
Makes you wonder if there's more to these distractions than just entertainment.
You know, the impact of all these distractions can be
pretty profound, actually. Think about the concept of attention residue.
Attention residue.
Yeah. Research suggests that when we switch between tasks, like say you're checking your email while you're working on a report.
Oh, yeah.
Our brains, they don't fully disconnect from that first activity. It leaves behind a sort of residue that can actually reduce our focus and our cognitive performance.
Wow, I can definitely relate to that. I've noticed that if I'm constantly switching between tasks, I just don't feel as sharp or as productive.
Right.
It's like my brain's running on fumes.
Exactly. And imagine that effect just like multiplied over an entire day, a week, or even a lifetime, It's really worth considering how this constant state of partial attention might be impacting our ability to think critically and really engage with those complex issues. Yeah, that's a good point. The video also highlights how being aware of all this, these distractions and systems of control, it can actually have some downsides too.
Ooh.
It talks about how intelligent people often feel isolated and frustrated in a world that doesn't seem to value their insight.
This idea of a cost of awareness is it's really interesting, isn't it? Imagine seeing the world differently,
Yeah.
perceiving those patterns and connections that other people miss.
Right.
While that can be a source of real insight, it can also lead to feeling isolated, like you're speaking a different language than everyone else.
It's almost like you're on a different wavelength, and sometimes it can be hard to connect with people who they don't see things the same way.
Yeah, and that disconnect can make it really hard to feel like you belong, to feel understood. It's important for people who feel this way to find communities where they can connect with like-minded people.
Yeah, find your tribe.
Exactly.
Right.
And engage in those stimulating conversations.
The video even goes as far as saying that society is being actively dumbed down. It points to things like, shortened attention span and a decline in critical thinking as evidence. That's a pretty bold claim.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your perspective on that.
Well, while it's true that our attention spans have probably been impacted by things like social media and the constant influx of information,
Yeah.
I think it's important to consider other factors too,
Like what?
Well, for example, the way we consume information has changed so dramatically over the past few decades, right?
No, for sure.
We're now accustomed to getting our information in these short, digestible bursts rather than through, long-form articles or books.
Right. That's a good point. So maybe it's not that we're getting dumber, but that our brains are just adapting to a different way of processing information.
Exactly. It's about adaptation, not necessarily decline.
Okay.
Our brains are incredibly plastic.
Yeah.
They can change and rewire themselves in response to our environment and our experience.
That reminds me of this book I read about neuroplasticity. It talked about how even simple activities like learning a new language or playing a musical instrument can actually change the physical structure of our brains.
That's the amazing thing about the human brain.
Yeah.
It's constantly evolving and adapting.
Yeah.
It's not static. It's a dynamic system that's being shaped by our experiences all the time.
One of the most intense claims in the video is this idea that there's a war for your attention.
A war.
Yeah. It talks about our phones as weapons and social media algorithms as like knowing us better than we know ourselves.
Wow.
Sounds a little dramatic, maybe?
Yeah.
But there's something about that idea that's just undeniably compelling,
It definitely taps into a real phenomenon, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, these technologies, they are designed to capture and hold our attention, often by using our own psychology against us.
Oh, yeah.
Think about those notifications that pop up on our phones.
Oh, yeah.
The endless scroll on social media, the autoplay feature on streaming services, they all play on our natural desire for novelty and stimulation.
It's almost like they're hijacking our brain's reward system. It makes it so hard to resist.
Right.
I know I've definitely fallen into that trap of just scrolling mindlessly through social media, even when I know I should be doing something more important.
We've all been there, right? The important thing is to be aware of these mechanisms, these sort of hooks, and to develop strategies for managing our attention,
So, like, what can we do?
Well, we can start by setting boundaries, like limiting our screen time or deciding on specific times for checking email and social media.
Okay, yeah.
And we can try to be more mindful of what triggers us, what pulls us in, and develop techniques to resist those tempting distractions.
So it's not about getting rid of technology altogether, but about using it more consciously, more intentionally.
Exactly. It's about taking back control of our attention and choosing how we want to spend our time.
Okay, that's a much more empowering way to look at it. But it also seems like a real challenge, especially in a world that's, kind of designed to keep our attention fragmented and scattered.
It is a challenge, but it's a challenge worth taking on, I think, because when we reclaim our attention, we reclaim our power to think, to create, to live more fulfilling lives,
All this talk about distractions and the war for our attention, it's making me feel a bit trapped, to be honest.
Trapped.
Yeah, like it's almost like the more you understand how the system works, the more frustrated you get and the more isolated.
I see.
It's like a catch-22 or, well, maybe more specifically what the video calls an intelligence trap.
Oh, interesting. That's a really insightful observation. The very qualities that let us see those flaws in the system, our intelligence, our critical thinking skills, our ability to connect the dots, they can also lead to those feelings of disillusionment and alienation.
Right.
It's almost like our minds are outpacing the world around us.
Yeah.
And that can be a very lonely place to be.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that way before. Like I need to dumb myself down, or hold back my thoughts just to fit in. It's a weird feeling, like you're somehow both too much and not enough all at the same time.
It's actually a common experience for people who are intellectually curious, for people who see the world through a different lens. They often feel like they're constantly questioning, analyzing, overthinking things.
Oh, yeah.
And that can make it really hard to relate to people who are, more comfortable with simple answers and surface-level conversation.
It's like you have to find that balance between being true to yourself and connecting with others.
Finding that balance is it's definitely key. It's about being authentic without alienating people. It's about sharing your insights without overwhelming others. And it's about choosing your battles wisely, recognizing that not every conversation needs to be, a deep dive into the complexities of the universe.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So it's about finding your tribe, those people who get you, who appreciate your unique perspective and can engage with you on that deeper level.
Exactly. And it's also about recognizing that not everyone needs to be on the same wavelength for you to have meaningful connections with them.
Yeah, true.
Diversity of thought is what makes life interesting.
Right.
Yeah. We don't need everyone to think alike. In fact, it's our differences that allow us to learn and grow from each other.
One of the things I appreciate about this video is that it doesn't just point out the problem,
Yeah.
It actually offers a different vision of success.
Oh.
It talks about prioritizing freedom and control over your own life instead of chasing those traditional markers of success like wealth and status.
That's a really powerful message. It encourages us to define success on our own terms, based on our values and our aspirations.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that true fulfillment comes from living a life that's aligned with our purpose, not from chasing external validation or societal expectation.
Yeah, it makes me think about what a truly fulfilling life really looks like, outside of all the confines of the system the video talks about. Maybe it's about pursuing work that's meaningful, spending time with the people we love, and engaging in activities that bring us joy.
Those are all wonderful examples, yeah.
Yeah.
It's about prioritizing experiences over possessions, connection over isolation, and purpose over prestige.
Right.
It's about creating a life that feels authentic and aligned with your true self.
The video ends on this really inspiring call to action. It tells viewers to stop waiting for permission and just start taking steps to live life on their own terms. It's like this wake-up call, It shakes us out of our complacency and reminds us that we actually have the power to choose.
It's a powerful reminder that we're not just, passive victims of circumstance.
Yeah.
We are active agents in our own lives. The ability to make choices, to set goals, and to take action that moves us towards our desired reality.
Yeah.
It's about taking ownership of our lives and creating a future that reflects our deepest values and aspirations.
It's inspiring to think about, taking control, living life on our own terms. But it can also feel kind of daunting, right? Like, okay, I see the game, but what's my next move? Where do I even go from here?
That's where it gets really interesting, I think.
Yeah.
It's not about, running off to a deserted island or dropping out of society. It's more of a mental and emotional shift,
Okay.
Reclaiming your attention, your time, your energy, and then directing those resources toward the things that truly matter to you.
So where do we even begin? What are some practical steps we can take to break free from those systems and influences?
Well, the first step is always awareness.
Yeah.
Right? We need to understand how these systems work, whether it's those attention-grabbing tactics of social media or the subtle societal pressures that kind of shape our beliefs. Once we see the game, we can start making more conscious choices about how we play it.
So it's like learning to spot those moments when you're being influenced or manipulated, whether by an algorithm or by societal expectations.
Exactly. It's about cultivating those critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
Questioning assumptions, seeking out diverse perspectives, and not just taking things at face value.
Okay.
We can also set boundaries, like limiting our screen time or being more mindful of the content we consume. It's about choosing quality over quantity,
So not necessarily unplugging from technology completely, but being more intentional with our time and energy.
Right.
Choosing those experiences and activities that actually nourish our minds and soul.
Precisely. It's about feeding our minds with things that stimulate us intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. It's about choosing activities that align with our values and help us grow as individuals.
This whole conversation has been so eye-opening, but I have to admit it's a little overwhelming too.
Overwhelming.
Yeah. Knowing about all these systems and influences can make you feel like you're constantly battling against these unseen forces.
It's true. Awareness can be a double-edged sword, but it's important to remember that we're not powerless,
Yeah.
We have the ability to choose, to make changes, to create a life that's more aligned with our authentic selves.
So how do we move forward? What's the key to breaking free from these traps and, living a more meaningful and fulfilling life?
I think it starts with defining your values, what truly matters to you. What kind of life do you want to create?
Right.
Once you have a clear sense of that, of your internal compass, you can start making choices that align with those values.
Okay.
And that might mean stepping outside of your comfort zone, challenging conventional wisdom, or pursuing a path that's less traveled,
Yeah, it sounds like it takes courage to break free from the expectations of others and kind of define success on your own terms.
Courage is definitely a key ingredient. But also self-compassion. It's about recognizing that this is a journey, not a destination.
Right.
There will be setbacks. There will be challenges along the way.
Yeah.
The important thing is to keep learning, to keep growing, and to keep moving towards a life that feels authentic and aligned with your true self.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into this fascinating and challenging topic. We've explored the idea that intelligence can be a trap, that the world might not be what it seems, and that breaking free from the system takes conscious effort and a willingness to challenge conventional thinking.
We've also looked at the ways our attention is being manipulated, how our education system might not always nurture critical thinking, and how chasing external validation can distract us from our true purpose.
And remember, all of this was inspired by just a single opinionated source. It's up to each of us to critically examine these ideas and see what resonates with our own experiences and perspectives.
The most important thing is to stay curious, keep asking questions and keep seeking out knowledge that helps you make sense of the world around you.
The video we discussed ends with this really powerful question. It says, the only move left is yours once you see the game, so what will your move be?
That's a question we all need to ask ourselves, I think. What steps will we take to reclaim our attention, our time, and our energy? What choices will we make to create a life that is both meaningful and fulfilling? It's a question worth pondering.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration and, self-discovery. Until next time, keep thinking deeply and keep questioning everything.